What are you feeding your mind right now? If it's social media, are you tired of doom scrolling through the angry comment sections and political rants yet? What if you use that time to actually fix your marriage? Welcome to the free Married and Connected School community. It's like social media, but without the ads, without the judgment, and without the noise. Just real self-paced tools that get you out of that roommate phase starting today. Inside, you get an exact blueprint for a weekly State of the Union meeting with your spouse. We're cutting mental load, we're stopping miscommunications, and we're breaking that exhausting loop of doom argument once and for all. Plus, you get instant access to workshops on overcoming resentment and bringing the actual fun back into your marriage. We have a dedicated space just for guys jumping into Forging Fortitude. It's a 10-week intensive to help you step into your masculine leadership and become the husband and man that God called you to be. And for ladies joining Edifying Eden, we're stepping out of that controlling, nagging era into our soft, nurturing, feminine era, even if your husband hasn't taken the reins yet. Either way, you can take responsibility for your side of the street. Stop scrolling the internet and start investing in your home. The community is 100% free with options to purchase certain courses. Click the link in the show notes and join the Married and Connected School community today. I'll see you inside. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like roommates, but it doesn't have to feel like a war either. Hi, I'm Kameran, certified marriage coach and a relationship expert. Every week on Married and Connected, I bring you real talk, hard truths, and practical tools you can start using right away. Whether you've been married 2 years or 42, this is where you'll find hope, encouragement, and steps that actually work. So let's make your marriage feel good again, starting right now. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Married and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Kameran Alariki. Today, we're talking to the self-love scientist. Victoria Icenhower is with us, and she is passionate about pleasure, relationships, healing, and we are going to dig into all of that. She's had life experience, education, exposure, all of the things that make her a complete expert in this field. And so we're going to talk about what self-love really is today. So, Victoria, welcome. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you, Cameron. I'm very excited to be here and dive into our conversation.
So the first thing that I want to just kind of debunk for everybody, I think self-love is one of those hot takes where it's really popular, but I think a lot of people think that it's like getting your nails done or getting a massage or going to bed at a decent time at night, like that kind of thing. What is your take on self-love? What is it? And how did you find it?
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, those things are wonderful. Like getting a good night's sleep is a tiny, tiny bit form of self-love because it is something that you're doing to better your body and your mind.
Sure.
My take is self-love and where it came from. It is the relationship that you are building, nurturing constantly. This is a never ending process with yourself. This is a focus on integrating what is important to you, what matters most to you, your deepest desires, and acting on them, aligning yourself with your purpose, aligning yourself with your passions. This is all a part of self-love. And like this, getting your nails done, like huge fan. And
Same.
like huge fan of getting the nails done. But you can get and this is just from personal experience. I love me a facial. However, I also have to sit with you have to sit in your own shit too. Like you gotta be self-love is being honest. Some folks hear self-love and they're like, well, I just need a self-care day. I'm gonna treat myself day. And I'm like, yes. And like, have you sat down and like just really took a good picture about all the relationships in your life? How is this one doing? How are
Yeah.
you doing overall? Like, really? Like, are you lined up with your things? Because people's interests change and relationships change. And we're so good. This is a very common thing I see. And I myself experience that, we'll put ourselves last.
Yeah.
And self-love is a version of prioritizing yourself. It is not selfish. It is something that, it's very slowly people are beginning to recognize that, as a human being, not a human doing, that you do matter. And the things that you want in life are not silly. It's not too much. You're not asking for too much. You really do deserve to live a life and you really deserve to have it all. But you can't have it all until you sit with it and you start nurturing on it because you're the only one who can really start that spark.
So many great things to break down there. I love that you started with the fact that people have to be honest with themselves
Mhm.
because we talk a lot about emotional sobriety on the podcast, and one of the things that I think people don't realize is that you may think that you're honest, but how many times do you lie to yourself a day? "Oh, I don't need I can have another Coke instead of water. I'm not that dehydrated. It hasn't been that long since I've been to the gym," things like that. But also, how often do we not sit in our shit and we bypass it, and then we also make excuses for it? So it wasn't that bad what they did to me. It wasn't that bad what they said. It didn't hurt. I know that I'm struggling here, but like there are other people that have it worse than me. And that's not being self-honest. Like it's not you're just bypassing, you're just making excuses for it. And that's a really big part of it. I also like that you talked about I've never actually heard the definition that you gave. So I love that your definition of it as opposed to the popular definitions that are out there. That's incredible. So, talk a little bit about your experience and how, because I know you're divorced as well. Did you find, because I know that this was something that I really experienced, was that the age old adage of you can't love other people until you love yourself is absolutely true. Did you find that as well?
I do agree with that. Um, And I do think it is a very powerful, powerful statement. The way I reflected on it was, I was so focused on wanting everybody else's validation around me. I lost the relationship, the connection with myself in the process. Didn't even know I was supposed to have one also. Like just like a
Yeah.
reminder at a young age, we didn't even know that like, wait a minute. We're just so caught up in like wanting to be seen and I get it. Like it feels so good to be seen. It feels so good to be chosen, but at the end of the day, where a lot of things can be temporary or a lot of the unexpected things happen, the moment you realize that you do matter and you start recognizing your worth, and then it just kind of hits you. Like for me, I realized I was like, oh my God, I don't even love myself. I am way more married to the idea of busting my ass in the workspace. I'm doing things I don't want to be doing. I'm picking up habits and have relationships I don't even want to be in. Like that's not healing, that's hurting, it's damaging, nobody's winning here. And then
Yeah.
you're sitting there asking yourself, "Why does this keep happening to me?" People say like, "Oh, there's no good people," or I'm just, well, it happens because, some negative connotation about themselves, and it's not true. But at some point, may have been made to feel that way. So when you really do, again, like we said at the beginning, you kind of sit with it. You're like, holy crap. Like for me, it was, oh my God, I don't even love myself. So where do I
Yeah.
begin? And you start realizing like all the things, for me in that moment, it was everything I had built my life around was around the expectations of someone else. And when I finally
Yeah,
got
that's good.
those things, it was like, why am I still so miserable? Why do I feel so lost or disconnected? Why can't I experience this pleasure that deep down, like, deep down, we all want, like the love, the pleasure, the whatever form of luxury looks like to you, whether it's a handbag, a vacation, or just like the pleasurable intimacy with a partner. It's like, well, why can't I have that? Why not you? So go
Yeah.
start, start there. And for me, it was after, I went through the divorce and it felt like I was, breathing for the first time. I was like, I'm finally on my own 2 feet. My feet are in the dirt. What am I going to do? Oh my God.
Yeah.
All the feelings, like, it was a lot of things that come up because I'm starting from the very beginning all over again, and this is something that people also experience in breakups where because you had a plan. You
Yeah.
did, and now it's like, "Oh, shit, I, like, literally just planned my future and I saw so much potential, blah, 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 and now I gotta start all over, and it sucks." So
Yes.
I'm not saying, because some people are like, "Oh, just go, get back out there. The best way to get over someone is to get under." It's like, "No, no, 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 no."
No, no,
I'm
no, no,
very
no.
sensitive. What is it I do wanna experience? And it's not just, "Oh, I wanna have the fashion, or I wanna have the luxury and the money." I love that. Like, yes, call in the money, call in the jobs, call in whatever you want. But you have to start rewiring your nervous system. You gotta refix this relationship with yourself because it's so wound up, or it's so in some ways, like you said, we're so good at comparing, like, "Well, it wasn't really that bad." Yes, it was, honey. Yes, it
Mhm.
was. Like, your heart is closed right now, and you gotta open it back up, and the only way you will be able to even, like, kinda going back, I know this is a long answer, but like you said, in order for yourself to be received or to open up that capacity to love again is you have to lead yourself there at your own pace. There is no rushing this. Like, some people get out of a divorce and 2 months later meet their partner, or 2 weeks later meet their dream partner, but it's not like that for everybody. There is
Yeah,
no scale, there is
that's an anomaly.
right? And so, like you said, in order for you to love someone, you have to love yourself 100%.
Yeah,
My some of the relationships I've had in the past that were amazing were only at that capacity because of the things I had put in, the work I did for myself, and it is a continual process, you have
yeah,
to at the end of the day, you have to sit down because 'cause you're the one who's going to sleep at night, like,
yeah,
do you go to sleep with gratitude, or you go to sleep loathing? Like, what's that
yeah,
about? Yeah.
yeah. I think one of the things that you said in there, talking about, like, going through a divorce and stuff, a lot of times when I'm coaching people, I'll hear like, "Well, I've lost myself in this marriage. I've lost myself." And it often makes me wonder, and I'd like to hear your take on this too. It makes me wonder how often we even know ourselves before we get into a relationship or before we even get married. And so I'm wondering how much of it is that we've lost ourselves or how much of it is that we don't know ourselves and especially don't know ourselves for who we are now. Because like for women, we change every time we have a kid, every time we move cities, every time we change jobs. So I mean, what's your take on that?
My take would be there's this saying where people will only meet you as deeply as you've met yourself.
Yeah.
So, if you get into a relationship or you get married and everybody's experiences are different, it depends on, you know, the thing, like the choices you're making, because sometimes we do things and you won't even realize it. Because again, love is such a powerful thing. Like, you might end up moving and quitting your job for this person. You might be doing some wild shit. And
Yeah.
then you wonder why, like, "Why am I feeling so stuck?" Or like you said, like, you have a baby, and for me, it was, I have the house, I have the job, I have the husband, but why do I just feel so, like, and
Yeah.
now I feel, my life is a complete, like, isn't like, me 5 years ago, she'd be like, "What?"
Yeah.
But I am, everything in my life is so colorful and so beautiful, but I've only been able to get to the capacity because of the willingness to, again, understand and acknowledge the things that you feel and are experiencing. And it is something that is very difficult to do because, again, we're kind of born into a society of, well, if you're single, like, clearly nobody loves you, and if you're in a
Yeah.
relationship, you should be grateful, and it's like
Yeah.
nobody's winning with all these pressures, so we need to start being a little more kind and compassionate with the relationship we have, again, with ourselves, so that, let's say you are feeling comfortable to date again, or if you are in a relationship, which you've seen probably with your clients, there are great seasons and then there are some hard seasons. It's just
Yeah.
the
It ebbs and flows.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think talking about pressures, I think this is where some people may struggle too. I know I did at the beginning of trying to figure out like who I was and developing that self-love is, you've got the pressure of life and creating this life and being intentional and all the things. But then there's also this pressure of you have to develop a relationship with yourself, but you're also trying to develop a relationship with your kids and develop a relationship with your spouse and like make sure you're hydrated enough and that you're not eating too many calories and that you're staying in your macros and you're getting enough, like the pressure is a lot just on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I want to talk about healing and how you have kind of developed a passion around that and how that has led you to being the self-love scientist too.
Okay. So I would say, kind of to go back in time for a second, I feel like part of my own personal journey um and healing modalities was I did a lot of I would call it self-love practices in a more intimate pleasure way. I was very curious about, why I felt sexually so disconnected in my body. So I
Did you
would,
feel that in your marriage too?
um, in that it, I don't know if it was like we were disconnected, but in that period, it felt like I was just performing, because in my mind,
Mhm.
it's like I'm supposed to do this for his pleasure. I'm supposed to do this so I can have a baby. I learned that.
That's really common.
Yeah, right. But I
Yeah.
learned during, and even when I was married, when I started exploring like self pleasure, and then I experienced giving myself an orgasm, I was like, why don't I have this feeling when I'm
Yeah.
married?
Him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I noticed, and I did some nerdy research behind it that a lot of women are experiencing unsatisfying pleasure. And there's a lot of stuff, like there's a lot of dirt underneath that. So I discovered, I did have some shame around my sexuality. And I realized that, at a young age, being sexualized as a young woman and realizing that sex is actually and can be pleasurable for
Yeah.
everyone. And so I also realized that every time, there's this meme, I'll never forget it. One of my friends sent it to me. She said, I could probably avoid all this bullshit if I just gave myself an orgasm today.
Probably true.
That's when you feel, when you explore yourself more on an intimate level,
Yeah.
not only, there are a lot of things happening internally, like the rise and fall of hormones, the dopamine and all this like feel good stuff. But there is also this energetic essence that's happening. Like you walk lighter, you feel more confident. But the other thing, and this is for anyone, even men, when you get to know yourself on a more intimate level, you start realizing how powerful having boundaries are. You start feeling more confident in what does feel good so that whether you're with yourself or with a partner or dating, you can confidently tell someone no. You can also express, if you do enjoy, like if they ask you, what do you like? Or in the midst of it all, you can be like, I love it when you do this, or I think it would be fun if we try this. The communication is just so good. And you start leveling up your relationships. And I realized that the more I, explored myself, my body confidence changed, so I was able to show up in a more authentic way without the approval of other people, and it is something that I truly want for everyone to feel versus, like, trying to you mentioned, like, counting calories and all that, like,
Yeah.
we try so hard to fit into this unrealistic mold of what the
Mhm.
beauty standards are, and then in relationships, people feel that, oh, well, like my partner should be able to make me orgasm. I mean, sometimes, yes, because they might know what they're doing. However, if you are hitting a wall, if you're disconnected from yourself, you're not going to experience any of that because you're
Yeah.
going to be so disassociated because of a plethora of things. Like there's a long list of why you feel that way. Um, but until you really get super vulnerable with yourself, you're not gonna really know who you are.
Yeah. I think a conversation that couples miss too is they don't even have the conversation about what a successful sexual experience looks like. When you get together, you just kind of fall into bed together and then you just keep going. One of intimate conversations we talk a lot about this is that there's 6 types of conversations that you should be having, and intimate conversations is one of them. And I don't think enough couples talk about, okay, that was great for me. Was it great for you? What could I do better? What do you like? And then a deeper, peeling back the onion layers of that goes into what you were saying of like, I don't know. I don't know what I like or what I want because I don't know myself well enough to know what I like or what I want. So talk about that because I even have men that have that issue that their wives are coming to them and they want this like really passionate experience that came out of, one of the Empyrean series novels or a Sarah Moss novel or something like that. And it's like, why? Why are you not this person? Or when I was pregnant with my first son, looking at my husband and being like, why? Why can you not be more like Edward? And he was like, it's a fucking novel, Cameron. Get over it. Like, and I'm like, but you suck so bad. We're divorced, obviously. But not just because of that, but many other reasons too. But that was a big one. But yeah, like they want these experiences, but like then they've got these husbands that are like, I don't know. I don't know what else I want. Like sex is sex is sex, and that's not true. So yeah, kind of what are you seeing? Because I know you coach too. So what are you seeing with clients in that kind of realm? And how do we fix that?
I think that's a really good point, and you're 100% right. It is something nobody actually talks about, and it does baffle me. There are a smaller amount of people, and I've had girlfriends tell me this too. I have specific people in my life who, when I'm the friend you talk and call when you want to talk about sex, or like, oh, guess what? Like my partner, did this," and I'm rooting for them. I'm like, hell yeah, girl! Like, so
Yeah,
happy. But
yeah, same.
then again, you're being selected, but, like, it's kinda wild, like, we can't openly talk about this. So, imagine how
Yeah.
and like you said, the couples, it's just like the money conversation, you know? Nobody wants to talk about money, but
Mm.
it's so important,
Yep.
and it's like, if we can't talk about finances, then you can't talk about my bedroom desires, right?
Yeah.
If we can't talk about bank accounts, we can't talk about banging, like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um so to answer your question, there is a lot of there's a lot of pressure actually. A lot of my clients feel pressured and super self-conscious to
Mhm.
express a desire or a need for exploring. And this is not just women. I've had male clients before where they have felt this pressure. And this is again kind of like that thing we talked about earlier where there is this unrealistic expectation. So in the case of like, well, she just like every time we're together, it just feels like she's not there, or I
Mhm.
really want to bring this up to her and I want to explore, in this case, this is a male, speaking about a female partner. And there is this, pressure for them to be like, I feel like, this partner is expecting this of me. And I'm like, well, have you talked about it? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, no, because that would require me to be emotional and vulnerable. And that's weak. And it's not. It's actually one of
It's
the
not.
best things you could ever do.
We
And
talk about that all the time. Vulnerability and humility are two of the sexiest attributes you can ever have.
the sooner you have these conversations, whether you are in a relationship or you're dating, and like my biggest thing is the sooner you get it out in the front, the better off. Like you'll be saving yourself so much emotional turmoil because at the end of the day, you do matter and what you want to experience, it does matter. Like
Yeah.
again, there are negotiations and there's some people are like, well, you have to sacrifice in relationships. But if your intimacy is
Intimacy.
not at a level where it is satisfying, like, that's a problem,
Yeah.
and so my favorite conversations in the past have been, for me, I love talking about it afterwards, like, "What was your favorite part?" Like, I wanna
Yeah.
know which parts, like, I just love having that conversation because it's so fun, you know?
Mhm.
The and then women can tell when it's not pleasurable, or your partner will be able to kinda tune in, like, "Hey, I kinda noticed you're a little more quiet," or, like, maybe it just happens, like, shit happens in the middle of sex, and you can't control it, and it's okay,
Yeah.
but you can't continue to carry on, like, having this mediocre grayscale sex if in the back of your head, you're like, "I really wish he was like the character in
Yeah.
this book," or I'm thinking about other things, and it's as simple as like, "Hey, can we take a time out for a second? I love you, and I really wanna be more connected, but, like, I have a lot on my plate right now." And most of the time, the right people in your life will welcome that and be like, "Oh my god, like, talk to me," or "Let me give you some space," and creating that safety creates
Or
the
let me
trust.
help you. Let me take some of those things off your plate so that you have less in in your head. Yeah,
Yes.
that's huge. I think that's true too, that it comes down to when kind of what you were saying earlier about you can only have conversations to the level of where your partner has met themselves. And so, if you're bringing a hard conversation of like, I love you, but you're kind of selfish in bed, like that's a hard conversation to hear. And at the same time, no less important than the bank account. So, I mean, these are things that we have to talk about.
Yes.
Really important.
And you might be, you may be surprised though, but sometimes like even having that dialogue, like you said, the great example, like, oh, most of the time you're in control. And sometimes I want that.
Yeah.
Might be like, actually, that sounds kind of hot. Like,
Yeah.
okay. You might be
Yeah.
surprised by their response. And, I'm not saying because some people are like, oh, there's a time and place. But sometimes if it's really up in your heart, if it's really up in your face, then that's the time. Like
Yeah.
just create the space and be like, "I gotta talk about this because it matters." And
Yeah.
that it is so important to recognize that your sense of worthiness and your sense of love is so valid and is so important. You know, just be ready to be like, "This is what I'm asking for." If you're a giver and a people pleaser, then
Mhm.
you also deserve to receive just as
Rece
much.
Yep, yep. So important. That was a big lesson that I had to learn because that's naturally who I am. I am a giver and I'm and receiving, I'm like, "Oh, this feels awkward for me to be receiving," So that's really something that I've had to work diligently through over the last few years. So, yeah, definitely. As a coach, what would you say some of the more common myths are that you bust or that you help people through?
I would say, one of the biggest things I hear a lot is we'll be talking about the things that, my clients want, right? We'll be talking about like all the goals they have with the relationships, especially like the partners they're looking for. And they're like, well, I can't have that because, I'm too much. And that
Mhm.
hurt. And
Yeah,
what really like, I think, and even I remember experiences myself, and you're never too much for the right person.
no,
Never. Like, your
that's true.
capacity, like you said, you love to give. Your capacity to love is is going to be, if not has already been matched with someone.
Yeah,
And, to feel that you're too much or to, when people say sorry for oversharing, and it's like, don't apologize for the things that really do matter.
yeah,
Yeah. So I feel like because we work a lot around self-worth, because like when we talk about love, people feel like they're unworthy of love.
it's
And
true.
that's not true. It is not true. And it does like it makes me so sad to think about
It
sometimes.
does. Yeah,
It's it is a beautiful thing to be in a relationship where it is being reciprocated and you experience those feelings. You can have the same thing even if you're dating, even when you're single with yourself, with your family, friends, your passions. But if we feel that we're undeserving, we cut ourselves short,
mhm,
for some of my close friends, they look at like some of the things I do and they're like, I'll never be able to do that. And I'm like, why do you talk to yourself this
yeah,
way?
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
exploring and realizing that, you are worthy of the things that matter, the things you dream about. Why do you think you dream about it? because
Yeah.
it's available to you. We just have to reprogram and reframe the way you speak to yourself. It's so easy for us to be like, I love you, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous. Like you said, we give, 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 give. But when it comes back to us, we're like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you like, let's talk, like, let's get into that. Like, let's get deep into that. And that's where a lot of the work happens for most people is when they realize, my favorite thing is like, I will compliment a stranger. I will either approach them, walk up to them, or we'll be walking and passing, and I'll hit them with a compliment. Whether or not they accept it, that's on them. To me, I love it's like a trickle effect. Like they're gonna like suddenly they're heightened and they're having the best day ever because
Yeah.
some you have seen. But most people don't want to talk to anyone because they're like just so in their masculine and just want to like work and my work is the only way that I'm worth it. When I do this, then I can have that.
Yeah.
And it's no, you're already worthy to have it all.
Yeah. Well, and to take it even further, a lot of it is when I do X, then I can have Y. But then once we get to X, it's like, well, that wasn't good enough. So now I've got to do even more. And you don't celebrate getting to Y. You don't celebrate those wins. You don't celebrate and that confidence that you do build out of that. That's huge. I think there's so many people walking around. I mean, anyone who's been hurt and hasn't done the work. I think it's all the trauma that's been created and like, you were saying there's a lot of people that don't feel like they're worthy. It's sad because that mindset was created in childhood
Yes.
at some point, and now we've taken it into adulthood and we're just living with that. And it's not true. It's not true. What's interesting to me, this was again another lesson that I had to learn, but what's interesting to me is that when you're given these ideas, like I've never been given an idea to like, design some great and wonderful piece of art or this great and wonderful building or something like that, but other people are. Yeah, I've never been given the idea to be a self-love scientist or to dive into that. So I think everybody has their own gifts, and I don't think we really pay attention to that enough. That we think we're not capable or not worthy, but if we weren't, we wouldn't have been given those ideas in the first place.
It it's very similar to that. There's a quote that it's and I use it all the time. I think I'm pretty sure I thought of this on my walk this morning. But there's a thing, people always say, "Oh, there's this mindset of what's the worst thing to happen? Best thing." And like in the worst case, like, are you really thinking that you're gonna die? Oh, if I
Yeah.
post, you're not gonna die though.
Yeah.
In any kind of circumstance, there was a time where I was going through a breakup, and I was like, I have no job, I have no house, I have in my mind at that time, I have nothing.
Yeah.
For a moment, then I realized that things will be temporary. So I was able to, stay with my parents even after the age of 30. And then once I got my butt back in gear, things started falling back into place and I was able to thrive and heal and go through that motion. But now it's instead of thinking what's the worst case, think of the best case. Like, what is the best case scenario of like, actually start the podcast, start the project, go to the dance class, go talk to that person, send the message, call the person. And then the other version of that is why not you?
Yeah.
Why
Why
not?
not you? It's
Why?
interesting that you say that. I have a 5-year-old, and the other day, he is the most competitive child you've ever met in your life, but he was saying something about, like, I'm gonna lose and it's not gonna work. And he I think he was getting ready for a soccer game. He couldn't get his shin guard on right, like all this other stuff. And I stopped him and I was like, all right, you have now spent like 8 minutes on all of the negative things. Now you get to spend 8 minutes on the positive things. Because if you're gonna spend time on the negative, you've also got to balance that out with the positive. And he looked at me like I had 6 heads. And I was like, all right, so like how many goals you're gonna score today? And he was like, I don't know, 5? Like, he was so irritated that he had to do this activity and, like, spend time on the positive, but then he did. He went out and he scored 7 goals. Like, he was so excited, and it was such a great day. I think and not to, like, toot my own horn here, but, like, I think that more people, if we did this for ourselves and also taught our children to do this, to spend time on the positive, not just the negative, we wouldn't have as many problems as we do. Like, we would have a more balanced mindset and life wouldn't suck so bad all the time for everybody in that victimhood mindset.
Yes, 100%. It's the same thing as, and this I see this more amongst women, but there's this like feeling of competition of like, well, I have to like be better than her. I have to look as good as her. Like I want to be matched with her. And it's like, if we turned competition and translate it into like something supportive, like go out and cheer them on. Even if like there's a party that doesn't agree or like it, just be like, oh my God, love this. Like send the positives because for those who feel, and this is something I do in my container, when you feel that some of the best ways to actually get yourself into that is to give. I'm not saying
Mhm.
all the time because then you're back into people pleasing, but I am saying you practice that, complimenting. You practice that, I love seeing you show up or that's amazing. I love that for you. Because, we all are watching, everyone's always watching and deep down there might be a sense of I want that.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling, like, jealous or envious, it's, "Well, you know what? Good for them because 'cause I'm sure they probably busted" like, you don't know their story. There could
Yeah.
be but if you support that and you start sharing the compliments, you're starting this positive like you said, this positive feedback system or even gratitude. Gratitude is something that I think, like, it's almost like the way you told your son, it was now that you've talked about the bad, which we're so good at, by the way, like,
So good at.
everyone loves drama. I've had family, like, ask about, like, certain things, and I'm like, "Why don't you ask about the good in my life?"
Ah,
Let me tell you about
yes.
that because that's what I literally live in. I have no like, sometimes the conversations are so short because I have nothing bad to report, but I'm like, "But let me tell you about this trip. Let me tell you about
Yes.
my practice and my podcast and blah, blah, blah." But when you kind of turn it around where it's like, actually, I have so much good to give and good to share. I have so much to be thankful for. It starts rewiring your brain and everything to notice the good in the world, to notice the good in people, to notice the good in yourself, which
Yeah.
feeds into the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah. That's interesting. Talking about people that are, family members that call and they're like, they all ask about the bad in their life. Something else I've noticed is when bad things happen, like if there's a death in the family, we bring food. If there's, a divorce, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, things like that. But if it's like, hey, I have the number 2 podcast in category, or oh my gosh, my podcast just went to top 25 of all time in, for dads or something like that. And people are like, great. So anyways, how about and they just bypass that completely. We don't focus like, we don't get excited for our friends. We don't support our friend we support our friends when they're going through a divorce. "Hey, how are you? How are things?" We're calling every day. But then when they do something great, do we share their posts? No. Do we leave reviews? No. Do we you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's wild how this happens. Wild. And
Yeah.
going along, like, the self-love, I think that's another reason why we feel less loved as ourselves because we only get accolades and validation when it's negative.
Right. And the thing is, think about being on the receiving end of that. So let's say you're overcoming some things, right? Or you find out, yes, my podcast is number 2 in relationship and you're so proud for yourself, you have to hold on to that.
Yeah.
To understand because this is very common whether you're a business owner or a podcast host or anything in any position when you like I want you to celebrate yourself. Like we talked about earlier, like we
Yeah.
are so good at like, here's my goal. We get the goal and we keep going, which is a good thing. However, like please take a moment and be like, you did that.
Look
Say
how far you've come.
exactly. And you have to be prepared that, you have to be the loudest person in the room for yourself because there may not be people there to cheer for you, but you got to cheer for yourself. And that is going to be a huge confidence booster. That's going to be a huge way to pour back into yourself because, we've all been there. And again, yes, you're right. Like there are people in your lives who are like, you go through some hard stuff and they will fight for you. And that is a great thing. But once you're back on your feet, things get a little
Yep.
quiet. You have to
Yep.
learn to show up for yourself all over again.
100%. 100%. Oh man. Okay. As we wrap up here, what do you want couples to know?
Would say for couples, I think it's really important to schedule check-ins. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's so important. Like we're scheduling the date nights, but like, what does that date like look like specifically? I don't care if you get takeout. I don't care if you do the candlelight dinner. I need you to schedule a weekly check-in and just, how are things going? Because I promise you, like, yes, you're in passing. Yes, you have a chore list. Whether or not you have kids and maybe you both have jobs, maybe you live together, maybe you live separate, have a check-in. How are you really doing? How are
Yeah.
you like have those real conversations and just be ready, like you can dump if you want, like dump into your notes, write it down, voice note it, and just bring the things that are really weighing on you because the things that get suppressed, it's being dishonest. If
Yeah.
you're not willing to have this conversation with someone for any scale of reason, then there is something deeper there that needs attention. And if you want to see something change, you need to be the one who does it. I promise you, your partner cannot read your mind. If you're like, sex is feeling mediocre, don't tell your friends that. Talk to them. Talk to your person. Don't be afraid to ask for help from your partner in any regard of your relationship, whether it's like, work has just been on my ass and I have these feelings, or if you have kids, like I just kind of need like can you take the evening? I know we usually split up childcare. Or if you don't have kids and lately you feel disconnected, talk about it. Like, the other day we're having, it was just wonderful to be with you, but I'm afraid I just didn't feel that spark. And I know I'm like, I can keep going, but I think the other thing is it is normal and actually quite natural for sometimes sex is not as like, oh my God, majestic
Yeah.
orgasms,
Yeah.
powerfully cosmic. I want everyone to have a cosmic experience. Absolutely. But honestly, like we are humans, like things are just constantly changing in our bodies. And some days everything is online. Some days one thing's off and the other thing is on. And there should be no pressure to perform, just like
Yes.
I check in with each other, be like, you know what? I know like we're getting a little heated, but I would just absolutely love if we spent more time doing foreplay, or I really would love if you would go down on me, or, anything like that.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid to express what is on your mind because it is going to show up much later. And the more
Yeah.
you hold yourself back, the more you're holding your relationships back.
100%. 100%. I have a template in my school community for a weekly marriage check-in for that reason right there. I could not agree more. And it's interesting that you were talking about this because our pastor last week in our church service was actually, they're doing a series on marriage right now. And he was saying that they've got like 6 kids, and he's like right around like the 4th, 5th, 6th kid, something like that. He's like, when we started dating, we did a weekly date night. And then right around like the 4th, 5th, 6th kid, it was like, oh, we don't need one this week. We're really busy, whatever. We put it off. And then the next week got put off, and the next week, and the next week, and the next week. And he's like, eventually we're at life group. My wife brings all of this stuff, like these really hard topics. And he's like, I had no idea. And so then to one up her, he was like, oh, okay, well, you're going to tell that, then I'll tell all these private, information, blah, blah, blah. And so then it starts this huge fight. And he goes, me as a problem solver, I start looking back and I'm like, when did this start? Like, when did we start becoming so disconnected that we couldn't even talk about these things? And he's like, and it was when we stopped doing date nights. And I think that's another misconception is that people think that date nights have to be like this big extravagant, get dressed up, get a babysitter, go downtown, have a nice steak dinner or whatever, like all these things. No, it can literally be like a 15-minute walk around the block in biker shorts and a t-shirt and no makeup kind of situation. Just so long as you're together, no distractions, and having those conversations that you need to be having. No,
That's
I definitely agree.
I think you said something that's also really important, and I really want people to sit with this. When you're with your person, and I know we live in a very big digital age thing, but when it's your time together, put everything away. Like, I understand, like, you can have the phone on, well, if it's an emergency, I get that, like, I guess, like, nowadays, if someone calls me, it's either a good thing or, it could be an emergency, but when you're with someone and this also counts for yourself, like, if you're like, "I'm not in a relationship, this doesn't really resonate," it will. When you
Yeah.
when you sit down and do that time together, the date for yourself, the date with your partner, put the phone away. Close the laptop, turn everything off unless you're, like, playing some jazz, and I love that. But, like, give yourself the less you have noise-wise, the more present you can be, and your partner deep down is gonna already feel like that connection is going to be a part of your turn-on process.
Yep. For sure. 100%. Yeah. And stop putting so much pressure on yourself and on each other. I just feel like sex should be this experience where you just revel in each other's bodies. Like,
Oh,
just
100%.
enjoy each other. Just
It
enjoy each
literally It literally should be I want this for everyone. Everyone should feel like when they see their person, they should be like, "I just want to, like, kiss every inch of you from head to toe," right?
Yes.
I just wanna
Yes.
ravish you. But, like, maybe you're exhausted, you're tired, so maybe you just wanna, like, when you get together because sex is being vulnerable. You're naked, like
Yes.
or maybe you're wearing lingerie, love. Like, whatever you're doing, you need to realize that it's not supposed to look like the movies. It's
Yeah.
supposed to feel as it needs to feel for you. Like, it
Yeah.
needs to feel safe. Your nervous system has to be, like, calm,
Yeah.
right? It shouldn't be on, like, this fight or flight stance, which does happen. But like you said, yes, there should be no pressure of, "Oh, we're about to have sex. I'm gonna have an orgasm." I want that for everyone, but just understand that sometimes it doesn't work, and that
It
doesn't
doesn't
mean
have to. Yeah. Like, if that happens, great. If it doesn't, it's okay.
the less we go in with an expectation, the more present we can be with our person,
Yeah.
and we would be very surprised, like, I myself, like, I'm a huge romantic, I love setting everything up,
Same.
and I get nervous sometimes where I'm like, "Oh my god, do we need music?" And I get in my head about it, or there will be music, and it's so shitty, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Shit." Like,
Yeah.
if you can laugh about it and come back, like, be present. The more present you are, the more pleasure you experience between yourself or with your person.
Love that. Love that. Oh, man. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
Oh my god, girl, I've been loving our conversations, I'll
I
be
know,
honest with
same.
you.
Well, I'll be on your podcast at the end of this month, I think. So we'll get to continue this. Yeah. So if people want to hear more, jump over to Love and Lattes podcast. Where can people find you? Where can people, if they're like, oh man, I have realized that I don't love myself at all, then how can they find you and how can they get coaching from you?
So, first off, just listening to this podcast episode is super exciting, and it can be a very powerful it's also a very vulnerable experience to
Yeah.
realize that, because I know myself, I'll never forget how that felt. Um, and so I have to say, like, thank you so much for listening, and if you do have those feelings, if you're having those experiences and you want to start the practice, you don't have to wait anymore. Everyone deserves, like, it's a never-ending process, but it does feel great. I think the other thing I would say is never be afraid to ask for help. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're stronger and you need someone to help. Like, someone let me, like, be that crutch. So you can
Yeah.
reach out to me. My website is theselflovescientist.com. I offer a free, conversation call where we get to meet virtually and connect, have a conversation. And if websites aren't your jam, you can just shoot me an email at victoria.lotuslifestyle@gmail.com and say, "Hey, I heard you on this podcast. I'd love to connect. I want X, Y, and Z," and we'll go from there.
I think that's really beautiful. I think for me and many other people too is that it's not when you finally realize like I don't love myself and I feel like I've lost myself in my marriage or in life, you're trying to figure that out. I think the hardest part is starting and knowing where to start. And I think that even if you're in that moment, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, that's me, that's where coaching comes in. Coaching is there for you to collapse time for you. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we see things that you don't. And so when you reach out to Victoria, that's where, she's going to help you start doing that where you don't know where to start. That's okay.
Yeah.
So that's really beautiful.
Having the awareness is already very big, and I'm proud of.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. I'm so excited to get this out. And I will see you in a couple of weeks on the Love and Lattes podcast.
So stoked. Thank you.
Thank you. We've all seen it. The messy social media messages, the public tea spilling, and the absolute embarrassment of finding out that your life is a lie through a Facebook post or an Instagram message that your spouse thought was hidden. What if it didn't have to be like that, though? What if you could find out before their affair got too deep? Statistics show that over 20% of marriages deal with infidelity, and most affairs last for years because they thrive in the dark. It's time to turn the lights on. Verified.com is the world's first searchable relationship registry. It's not just an app, it's a digital boundary for your marriage. When you register your spouse on Verified, you are claiming your relationship on a global scale, whether you're talking, you're dating, or you're married. If another man or woman is being told your spouse is single or divorced and they search for your spouse on the registry, they find you instead. Now, here's the game changer. Verified allows you to speak one-on-one and directly with that other person. No gaslighting from your spouse. No he said, she said. No, oh my God, you went through my phone. How could you betray my trust like that? And zero social media drama. Just the truth, person to person, before things go too far. Don't wait for that gut feeling to become a nightmare. Because even if you think your spouse would never, there's an even better chance that you just never know. Register your spouse today using the link in the show notes and lock in your legacy to protect your peace. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional counseling or therapy. Every couple story is unique, so take what's helpful and leave the rest. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that neither I, Kameran Thompson-Alaricki, Married and Connected, or Recognizing Potential Coaching are responsible for any outcomes related to what you apply from this show, especially if you are not a client of mine.